Hi, it's David Casino again. In today's episode, we're going to add the ability to use our voice to search brain dumps, send them to OpenAI, and get back a response. We already have the ability to enter brain dumps using our voice, so it makes sense to have the same easy to use interface for searching them. We're also going to clean up the user interface a bit just to streamline things. Let's get started. So here we are, back in our interface, and we've added this search button, and I can ask any question about my brain dumps. So let me say, what features do I want to add to Calorie Talk? This is just another app that I built, and I entered a brain dump with some information about it. Now I'm going to specifically tell OpenAI to be very verbose so we can intentionally break the interface by returning too much content. If you have too much content in the user interface, Flutter does a really good thing that's helpful. It'll show you that you're basically packing too much content in a space that it doesn't fit, and it's going to show like a warning indicator. So I'm going to tell it, answer in 4 paragraphs of text. So we're purposely trying to have it respond with a ton of text. I'm going to click search, and we'll see what OpenAI comes back with. Perfect. So OpenAI did send a response, and it was a sensible response. It's saying that I want to add a feature that groups the entries by day. So it's a good quality response from OpenAI, and it just dumped a ton of content here because I intentionally told it give us 4 paragraphs. Now you see these yellow and black lines here. This is Flutter's sort of debug interface where they're telling you, hey, look out. If there's too much content in this particular user interface, it's going to overflow on the screen. The user won't be able to read it. And this is something we want to fix. So I'm going to open up Cursor here, and I'm going to start a new chat. And I'm going to say, when there is too much content on the search interface, it overflows the screen and I get an error. How might I fix this? To fix this overflow issue, you'll need to make some adjustments to the UI. Since you haven't provided the UI code, I'll give you some general suggestions. Use a single child scroll view or list view. Okay, this is a very sensible suggestion. Now, the reason why it wasn't able to apply those changes is because I didn't give it the file where those user interface elements lived. So let's try to ask a follow-up question here. I'm going to add main.dart because that's where that interface code lives. And I'm going to say, here is the user interface code in main.dart. Please make a targeted suggestion. Hit enter. Thank you for providing the UI code. So it finds main.dart and it actually implements those changes for me. So you can see that it says cancel generation. That basically just means it's still working, and if you want to kind of bail out, you can. But once that little pop-up goes away, you can click the apply changes, and it's going to actually try to make these changes. Now, before I do any changes to the code, I want to make sure that I've already checked all my code into Git. So I'm going to type git status, and you'll see that my directory is clean, so this is safe to do. We always want to be able to fall back to a known good point. I'm going to click accept, and I'm going to refresh. And if I go back to my search interface, I can ask it again, what changes could I make to Calorie Talk? I'm asking a slightly different question, but I'm going to tell it still provide me with 4 paragraphs of recommendations. So I'm just basically trying to force it to give me a ton of content. I'm going to click search. It's going to send the request to OpenAI. And still processing. Okay, so here we go. So now there's no more error that we saw where there was too much content, and I can actually scroll this. So it's giving me other ideas I could do to improve the app. It doesn't even know about the app, so these are just kind of random suggestions. But you can see we're no longer breaking the layout. And I still have my search box and my search button. Okay, so that bug is fixed. We're going to commit this to git commit -am fixed content overflow issue. I'm going to push it up to Git. And so now we have those changes saved. Let's do one more quick UI change, and then we're going to add voice to the app. So when you're running in debug mode on the simulator, it puts this little banner here, but it kind of gets in the way of the interface. I don't need to see that. I know I'm in debug mode. So I'm just going to ask if there's a way that we can remove this. So I'm going to open up a new chat. I'm going to say, because it's a different issue, like you don't want to keep reusing the same chat if you're trying to tackle a different feature. I'd like to remove the debug indicator in the UI when running on my local iOS simulator. To remove the debug indicator, also known as the debug banner, so it gives me the proper name for it, it's called the debug banner, you need to modify the material app widget. So they're just passing in this flag, show debug banner false. Very simple change, we'll hit apply, and it's just adding one line of code. We'll click accept, we'll save it, and you'll notice that that debug banner went away. So these are just some nice changes so we have a nice clean interface while we're adding these additional features. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. Git commit -am removed debug banner. And this can seem tedious to check your code in after feature, but you're really going to appreciate that practice as your app gets more complicated, and you want to always continue to make forward progress. You don't want to slide backwards and break things you've already fixed or enhanced. Okay, so now it's time for adding the big feature. Having this sort of text box here where you could type your answer and search has been sufficient for us to test the OpenAI integration, but we want to use voice. Like we're already using voice here to enter in our brain dumps, and so we should be able to use voice to search them as well. If we look at our existing user interface, the microphone interaction kind of is not good. It shows the text up here, it's kind of far away from the button, and I'd like these to live kind of in the same area so the user is very clear that they're recording, they can see the transcription happening, and we're going to try to do something called the sliding up panel. So when you click this button, you'll see this little screen come up maybe a third or halfway up the screen, and it'll have all the necessary pieces in order to record something and convert it into text. And then once we create that, we can share it with the search component. So that way the same interface for recording is consistent across those two different screens. So I'm going to start a new chat, and I'm going to make sure it's on main.dart. That's where the interface currently lives. We'll add PubSpec just so that it has access to that, and we'll even add OpenAI service in case we want to add some changes to how we're interacting with it. We may not need it, but it doesn't hurt too much to add additional files. So I'm going to say when I'd like to make some changes to the speech to text interface. Instead of displaying the translated text on top above the list view, I'd like a sliding up panel to appear from the bottom of the screen. Now placement is really important. Like I don't want the sliding up panel to cover up my buttons. So I want it to slide up just slightly above these buttons and maybe go up, halfway up the screen, for example. From the bottom of the screen above the microphone and search buttons, and extend, we'll say halfway up the screen. We can always adjust the height later. Halfway up while the user is speaking. Once the user lets go, it should slide back down out of view. All right, let's see what this can do. Certainly, I'll help you modify. We're going to use the sliding up panel package. Okay, so we've got a new package, and it wants to add it to PubSpec YAML, so it was good that we added that. And you can see sliding up panel is listed as something they want to add to the PubSpec YAML. And like any new package, I always like to see if there's a newer version. So I'm going to bring Safari down. I'm going to copy and paste sliding up panel. And sure enough, it pops right up in the Dart packages. This draggable widget makes sense for implementing sliding up panel. Yeah, you can see how this thing slides up and then it kind of falls down. Okay, that seems kind of like what we want. And the latest version is 2001. So Cursor actually found the latest version this time, so we don't have to make any changes. All right, so let's go ahead and click Apply. So it's going to add it to PubSpec YAML. We'll click Yes. We'll save it. Cursor will grab the latest package, and then we can continue on to the actual code. Let's modify main Dart to implement the sliding up panel. Okay, is it visible? Okay, so they have a flag to know if it should be visible or not. We're going to set the state. Okay, let's just go ahead and see what it's going to do in the context of the actual main.dart. So I click yes, we know we want to import that package. I'm going to click this arrow to go down to the first change. We have a panel controller, so that'll control how the panel goes up and down. We have this variable. It just says it's not used because we haven't added those changes yet. Okay, we'll go to the next one. Okay, so we're basically toggling this flag. This all looks good, so let's hit accept. I'm going to save it. Now, because we added a new package, I'm going to restart the app and just kind of start from scratch because I want it to have access to all the latest code. So I'll click the green play button here on my run interface. It's going to rebuild the app. It's going to deploy it to the simulator. So we might have to wait a few seconds for that. In the meantime, I'm just going to browse the code. No speech detected, try again, that looks good. Okay, so while we were looking, it was able to pull up, and it actually pulled up our existing thoughts because in the previous episode, we're saving them to the device. But I do see a problem. I don't see our buttons anymore. So yeah, this is bad. If we don't have the buttons, we can't do anything. So I'm gonna say, after making this change, I don't see the two buttons at the bottom. What happened? And how can we fix this? And Cursor apologized very sincerely. Let's fix this by adjusting the layout to ensure the buttons remain visible. Sounds like what we want. I'm going to click apply. We're going to look at it over here. And it's putting these in a stack. And the stack is a Flutter widget that lets you kind of position things on top of each other in a way that you can control it a little bit better. Okay, we got this new flag. Should I show the AI screen? Should I not? Okay, this looks sensible. We'll click accept. We're going to save it. And wow, there's our buttons. And this is actually really good because it's kind of nice to be able to see the text underneath the buttons rather than cutting off. So this was an unexpected change. As Bob Ross would say, this was a happy little accident. But now let's test out the feature. So if I click the button and hold it, I just had an idea for a new app called AI for music. Okay, I let go of the button, and you can see that, oh wow, that was crazy. Okay, so the sliding panel did go away, but it didn't actually create the brain dump. Oh no, there it is. Okay, I just missed it. Just had an idea for an app called Hi for music. Okay, so the speech to text wasn't perfect, but it did save the brain dump, and the sliding panel did go away. I'm going to test it one more time. I want to build an app for people that run large gyms. Okay, so it's thinking, and it added the brain dump. Now that we can add the brain dumps, we don't need this section up here where it's kind of redundant, like it's putting the text in two different places in the list, but also in this area in the top. So let's just clean that up before we do anything else. and I'm going to say, I'll use a new chat, might as well. I don't need the text display above the list view anymore. Let's get rid of it. So cursor's thinking, certainly I'll remove the text. Here's the updated version. I'll click apply. And you can see it's getting rid of this item from the list. And it doesn't look like it's getting rid of anything else. Okay, so let's hit accept. Let's hit refresh. Okay, so it got rid of that area. That's great. That was very distracting. And we'll test it again, just to make sure we didn't break something along the way. I should reach out to Susan to collaborate on a new video series. I release the button. It adds it to the list. Okay, this is perfect. So now that we've added the sliding up panel, we also want to use it here for searching. We don't want a text box and have to type. We want everything to be voice. Now, the sliding up panel that's triggered by the microphone is the exact same interaction I want to have on this page.
Okay, so I'm going to open up the chat and I'm going to explain essentially what I'm trying to do. When I press and hold that search button, I want the sliding panel to come up. When I press and hold the search icon, I want to pull up I want to activate sliding up panel so that I can search my brain dumps using voice. When I release the search icon button, I want the sliding button to go away. It should behave exactly the same as the add brain dump interaction. The only difference is that instead of adding a brain dump, it should call open AI, send the question and thoughts, and then display the results. This should behave as if I typed in the search box and hit the search button. Okay, so we're giving it a lot of instructions. Let's see what cursor can handle. Certainly, I'll modify the homepage state class to implement this functionality. Here are the changes we need to make. Let's go ahead and hit apply. I just find it easier to see the code in the context of the existing code rather than trying to read it in this small area. So we have this new function, start listening for search. Okay, it's listening for search. It's setting some flags. On result, it's going to set that variable. And when it's done, it's going to close the panel and it's going to ask OpenAI. Okay. And then what other changes? Let's use these arrows to navigate. It got rid of the floating action button and it added a gesture detector. This is great. This is very similar to what we did when we were adding brain dumps. And we're going to hit accept. I'm going to save my changes. Now this is a pretty big change, so I'm going to just restart the simulator just to make sure those changes went into effect. So come over to the search button. I'm going to press and hold this and say, who should I collaborate with? So it's not capturing the text. Let's see if we broke something. I'm going to come back over here. I should do an episode on all of the failure modes. So it doesn't look like it's listening over here either. So I don't know if this is a problem with my microphone or some other issue. Or I could have just literally broke something by adding this change. So So let's go back to cursor. We're going to say the sliding up panel seemed, or let's just say it worked properly, except the voice to text wasn't captured. It also isn't working on the add brain dump interface now. I apologize for this oversight. Let's fix both of those issues. Okay. See, it's doing the same thing it did before where it's trying to listen for 30 seconds, and we don't need all of that. So I'm suspecting maybe it's just the simulator is not picking it up. So we're going to try this in Google Chrome just to rule that out as a possibility. So I'm going to stop the simulator, and we're going to launch this in Google Chrome. So if you remember, the way you can choose where your app will launch is in the bottom right here. You click this, and we're going to change it to Chrome, and I'll go ahead and hit play. And we'll just wait for it to launch in Google Chrome. Just looking at the code, it seemed like it was doing some sensible things, so I just want to rule out that it didn't, something didn't break. All right, so let's add some brain dumps. Notice there's no thoughts captured because the simulator has its own storage separate from Google Chrome. All right, I'm going to hit and hold this button. It's going to ask me for the microphone because it's the first time. I want to do an app series on failure modes of cursor. Okay, so we saw the speech to text is working over here on Google Chrome. Let's see if this function works with the search. What episodes should I do in the future? And there we go. The search is now using my voice, and it came up with all these different episode ideas. And you can see here that I can now scroll through the results without it causing a layout issue. So this is great. Everything's working properly.
After the work we did in today's episode, we're now able to search through all of our thoughts using only our voice. In the next episode, we're going to get into the world of prompt engineering to take the search to the next level. Thanks for watching.